Hey everybody, welcome back to the quest for the bestest. It's 2023 and it's time for the Oscar Best Picture nominees, baby. That's right, we're taking a break from the normal show to cover all 10 of the films that the Academy thinks are deserving of possibly winning the highest award in cinema, the Best Picture. So, here on Backlot Banter, our brand new YouTube channel specifically for making movie content reviews. We do Quest here. If you're from our old channel, Backlog Banter, if you saw our community posts or our messages in other videos, welcome. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Maybe even if you're feeling especially frisky, hit the like and the notification bell. And then the final step, the coup de grace, is when you write a nice little comment down below. So,
engagement
welcome.
Fodder. When I write anything.
Yes.
You can just say what you had for breakfast.
A string of letters and numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would appreciate some coded messages. If you could, I know our fans are really lovely. Send me some coded messages, and I'll try to figure out what they say and get back to you.
Yeah.
Respond. I'll respond in a similarly coded message.
Maybe use a codex of sorts.
Oh, a codex.
To figure. Yeah.
All right.
No, Tucker. That was last
Oscar
year.
reference.
Oh, we're in
Oscar reference.
we're in the new year, baby.
Enough of all that nonsense. Let's talk about our first movie, because we don't really have to do much housekeeping here. The old series doesn't matter for a couple weeks.
No.
Our movie
Took
we're
out in the
talking
back
about
behind
today.
the barn. You heard the gun
No,
cocking.
not that, not yet. We didn't
We
do
didn't
that.
shoot.
just yet.
We didn't kill it. We didn't
No,
kill it.
it's-
But
still 8 more episodes.
It's chained
It's
to a
gonna
pole.
crawl its way back out of its grave and seek revenge on us.
Okay.
Okay, but what movie do we talking
Should've said
about?
that.
What's going on?
what
Everything,
movie is it?
everywhere, all at once. Directed by the Daniels.
Oh.
This movie came out earlier in 2022. Premiered at South by Southwest here in Austin. I didn't get to go see it then, but I did watch it for this review, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So, who wants to leap in to the multiverse and try to give us a plot synopsis of this maybe confusing movie? Do you think it's confusing? I don't know. Who wants to? Who wants
I
to
feel
take
like
it?
it has to be Tucker
Can I
Hazel.
make a request first? This is a request.
Oh,
Okay.
It's a
All right.
request.
Request for the
Can
bestest.
we
quest
request for the bestest? Can we start out
Yeah.
these with what these films have been nominated for? Because obviously we can't do
Oh, sure,
noms and
absolutely.
wins, but just contextualize the conversation fresh off of these nominations.
Okay. Yes, because they've only been nominated at this point. No wins thus far, but Everything Everywhere All at Once has been nominated for. Has been nominated in 11 categories, the most of any film this Oscar season. It was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, Best Score, Best Original Song for This Is a Life by David Byrne and Mitski, Best Motion Picture of the Year, Achievement in Directing for Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role, Michelle Yeoh, 2 Supporting Actress nominations, count them, 1, 2, for Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu, Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role for Ke-Huy Quan, Achievement in Costume Design, and Achievement in Film Editing.
That
Close
is-
to everything it could have.
That's a lot of nominations.
That's
Mr.
3
Fat
away
Tanner.
from Titanic.
Yeah, that's actually. I was gonna ask Tanner, Mr. Facts Dykstra. Is that the most of the of all the nominees this year? Did it get the most nominations today?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Well,
By 2 or 3, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I too.
full
I
I believe the
disclosure,
follow-up is...
we didn't know that this film would get so many nominations. We did predict it would be nominated for Best Picture, so we got to watch the film early, and then we're confirmed in our guest today that the Academy does think this film is worthy, but we didn't know it would receive all these nominations. So there you have it.
Now, without further ado, Tucker Hazel,
Ah.
what the hell is Everything Everywhere All at Once about?
Yeah, well, Timo proposed an interesting question. Is this movie confusing or not on a plot level, as he's asking me to give a plot synopsis? And I think that when you really break it down, it is an incredibly simple concept. The story follows Michelle Yeoh's character, Evelyn Wong, as she deals with the stresses of middle-aged immigrant life. She has struggles with her daughter, who is distanced from her, her husband, who's a little bit daffy sometimes and wants everything to be happy, but she's just stressed about her taxes and about running a laundromat. And the movie follows her story as she comes to find out that she has the ability to defend the entire multiverse through multiverse jumping and all these sci-fi techniques that they teach to us across the course of the film, but it's the sci-fi multiverse part that is all glommed onto that core central narrative of an immigrant family and their family dynamics that is pretty simple on a base level. It's just family dynamics and how these characters treat one another, but it's splintered off into so many potentially confusing, but I think very well done and easy to follow once you know what you're looking for, threads that are shattered across every possible reality.
Okay, but what is the plot of the movie?
That Evelyn Wong is dealing with her stress at home with the taxes and the laundromat, and she discovers that she can defend the multiverse and hopefully make sure that it doesn't all collapse within on itself.
Well, there you go.
Truly.
You're right about
Yeah.
that. That is
You've
what
got
the
the
It's a
plot is.
Got the one.
one-sentence plot.
Yeah.
This is what. Well, how long is this screenplay? You think like 5 pages, maybe?
Something like
Probably.
Yeah.
that. Where do we want to start? Where do we want to start with
Impressions?
this
Abram?
monster of a film?
God, he's genius.
I'll go
Imagine.
first. How about?
Starting the review with
I'll
impressions.
go first.
Go for it.
So I watched the film in theaters, and I made a big swinging proclamation on Twitter shortly after, which was, this might be my favorite movie of all time. It made me feel all sorts of ways. It was just such a delight, as a treasure almost. And so I was really excited to rewatch the film now and sort of confirm that hypothesis or maybe push back against it. And the truth is, I liked the movie a lot less when I rewatched it, to be honest with you.
Oh,
I don't know how unpopular I'm going to be on this review, because I think a couple things. First of all, we might as well just do one episode of this miniseries and just stop, because it's going to win Best Picture, I think, in my heart of hearts.
We'll see.
I think that this is a remarkable achievement in filmmaking, made even more remarkable when you begin to discover how it was made, how the VFX were created, what software was used to edit it, what the timeline looked like in the editing bay, because I posted it to Twitter. It's a really remarkable story in terms of its production, the meta-narrative around all of the people whose careers have been given a amazing resurgence because of this film. It's a remarkable Hollywood story and a remarkable bit of filmmaking. I found it on a rewatch to be overindulgent. I found it to be silly in a way that was getting a little grating. And for me, what really stuck out on the rewatch was everything around the zaniness. It was the performances, it was the heart of the film, it was the emotional undercurrent. And so I love where the film ends, and I think it has so much to say and it has so much heart. But I think it's doing this. It's like maximalism. It's like, give me shit, here's stuff, and it's happening, and we're fighting, and it's taking. We're doing minutes long fight sequences with a butt plug in somebody, right? And for me, I think it just sort of dilutes itself. So I still think this is a remarkable film, but I liked it a lot less than I did when I saw it in theaters.
All right, can I go right after Abram, because he's using all these words
Absolutely.
that I just want to
go for it.
I think that this movie is maximalist in the extreme. It is totally.
Yeah.
I described it to myself after watching it as like a movie. I think everything.
Said self.
As Timo, I said, this is a movie. And I think that the way that it is just so extra in all of its regards, I think you make a fair point, Abram. And I think my impression of the film is that is all there, and yet I'm, on a first watch, like really sucked into it. I was totally noticing, I was like, yeah, this is silly and ridiculous, and like, this is goofy. But I found that to be very enjoyable.
Goofy, ah.
Yeah, it is. I think that
Yes.
when I was watching it, I was able to somehow, like in the scenes where the glass cracks and we see the mirrorverses. I was able to and just enjoy like the hilarity of what was happening on screen, but also really like the story and the heart of it, and find myself, I was always trying to like, I hadn't been spoiled. I really didn't know a lot about the film, even though I hadn't watched it for nearly a year after it came out. But the part of it kind of all being about this family's moment of struggle, this divorce, really. I had kind of heard that it was about a divorce, and it's kind of about that, but it is really, I think, a lot more about this mother reconnecting with her daughter in a way that I think is really well written, and I think makes me want to cry when I'm watching it. And so I can totally understand where you're coming from, Abram. And I think for me that it made it enjoyable because I was able to like guffaw my like like my way through it while also trying to be
Yeah.
an analytical like educated film viewer. And I appreciate that
Mm.
it lets me be dumb and silly and also like really have stuff to try to bite my teeth into.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to go next
Go ahead.
because Everything Everywhere All at Once was a film that when it came out, it took the world by storm. The movie-loving world, it shot to the top of the Letterboxd Top 250, and everyone I heard talk about it says it was so emotionally resonant for them. And I can't personally empathize with that emotional resonance, but I can still appreciate the film for everything that it does so well. And I brought up how this film shot to the top of the Letterboxd 250, and I think that's an important thing to recognize because this film, perhaps more than any other, seems to be taking a page out of the book of the internet. I think that's what the kids are calling it these days.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Heard of that.
We've thrown the word maximalism around. This film is obviously very. If I can throw some more isms at you here, so I can. This film is very.
No, not
No, not quite. This film is very much about the sort of eternal battle of optimism versus nihilism, or perhaps absurdism at a certain point.
God, it's
Yeah.
a whole
And I
other
think
part of
there's a
this
lot of-
film that it's about. Jesus.
Yes. And I think that there's a lot of those philosophical viewpoints to be found in the film. Some very clear sort of written or visual sort of motifs that tie us back to maybe like Albert Camus and Sisyphus being happy about rolling that rock up the hill. But outside of all of that, I just have to. I look at the rest of the film. I'm like, especially when I was rewatching it the other night. I'm like, this film is just really solid from all aspects. Visual effects, editing, score, sound, the performances, obviously. Though I do have a bit of a hot take about one of the performances, but we'll get to it in due time, I'm sure.
Oh, he's
But no,
teasing us.
in short, I really, really loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think I'm in the majority with that opinion.
Yeah, you're also in the majority here because obviously we all like it to varying degrees, as we'll talk about.
Tucker
But
could say he
I
hated
think
it and you'd still be in the majority, Tanner.
hmm
it's true. It's true. Well, I'm not going to say that because this last time I watched it, I finished it a couple hours ago, was the 5th time that I'd seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. I saw it twice in theaters. I watched it once when I got the Blu-ray. Thank you, Tanner. You got me that for my birthday with my lovely girlfriend Rachel Willis. Then I watched the movie a couple days ago with the director's commentary on, of which I learned a lot about this movie, maybe too much. And then I watched all the behind the scenes for this movie, and then I watched it again without the director's commentary, so I could like really nail in everything. Also, I watched a bunch of supplementary content, YouTube videos, analyses, reviews, reactions to the trailer, sort of things. Because I think this is a really interesting movie to immerse yourself in. Because Tanner, you mentioned it drawing inspiration from the internet age, and I think that what is so interesting about this movie is that for the first time in a long time, especially for films that are nominated for all these major awards, this feels like a modern film. This feels like what filmmaking can do with a fresh set of eyes on it. Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert were filmmakers who grew up using YouTube, making music videos, making shorts with wacky editing, with a more absurdist YouTube sense of humor that we all grew up on, and that's not sort of thing that we've seen creep into films that are receiving these kind of awards ever. Because we're finally tipping into the age where people our age and a little bit older are making these awards bait films, but this is absolutely not awards bait. Traditionally, this film would get nothing, and it would exist on a YouTube channel somewhere, and people
This
are like,
film
aha, that
premiered-
was funny that one time.
I don't believe any movie that it premieres at South by is an awards bait film. South by, love the fest. Not the place that you want to start if you're trying to win Best Picture.
Yeah. But I think what really struck me on a rewatch, and why I very specifically said that I was not going to be saying that I disliked this movie, is that this movie, the more that I learned about it, and the more that I thought about the ways in which its maximalism, sometimes to a distracting degree, or its goofiness, sometimes to a distracting degree, are used in really interesting and solidly written ways to support the incredibly varied and deep themes that this movie is going for. There's a lot to break down here. Philosophical stuff, relationship stuff, things about class, about race, about gender. And we're always talking about, hey, on Quest, we like talking about themes. And guess what? This movie takes elements from all of them, but fuses them into a core that I think is so rock solid that even when there's a butt plug joke or a dildo joke or a rock joke or, take your pick. You got your Neil jokes. You got your whatever. Those all, in some way, throughout the multiverse, always funnel back to that core. And I think that maybe with some explanation of these themes and discussion, I think, Abram, we might be able to sell you a little bit more on returning to that like incredible empathetic glory that you had when you watched it the first time, because this is a film that not only shook my world on the first time I watched it, but the more that I've learned about it, the more respect and intrigue that I've gained of it, because I think this is what film can be, finally. And I think that, of course, that's a little bit ridiculous. That's a hypothetical or a hyperbole. But I really do. This is my second favorite film of all time. So I'm here to defend it.
I hope you can, Tucker, because the Daniels really need my support this award season.
Yeah, it's true. God,
That's true.
they're worried.
They're the underdogs.
I want to go visit Mr. Camus. Let's talk about theme.
Oh, okay.
Which
Let's do it.
theme
starting
do
off
we
big.
want to talk about? I think because the way that this film works, Tucker, and the way that I was poking fun at you for your explanation of the plot earlier. I think you're totally right. That the way that everything is so wrapped up in itself that it is a little bit difficult to really explain like what happens in the movie, because I feel like so much of it actually deals directly with what it's trying to say. I think this film is very clear in its message, at least in some parts. I think that
Sure.
maybe it's a little difficult to understand what our divorce storyline is, what is going on with that, like what, because it's I don't think it's hard to determine like reality or our home universe from all the other ones, but I do think that the way that one floats in and out of like the central focus can make it a little bit difficult to really discern exactly like on like a plot level what's going on. But the way that theme with the theme of the multiverse, which I really do think is this like optimism versus nihilism battle, basically. Like they were like, okay, let's have our soldiers of nothing versus their soldiers of everything, like duke it out here in this film. I think it's done really smartly. I think that not only are the philosophical viewpoints presented very well in a like a accurate manner, but also in a like using filmmaking elements to demonstrate what these like I think you could go in and cite in all, is it Nietzsche the nihilist? Tanner, you know these things?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe.
Nietzsche the nihilist. We could probably go in and find passages from his work that apply directly to what characters say in this film. And I appreciate that.
Maybe.
And I also think that the way that it's all presented in a like unself-serious manner, like in this like weird, like wacky sci-fi land, makes philosophy, which can be a little too self-serious all the time. It makes it like digestible and entertaining, which is like the greatest thing a movie can
Has maybe
do.
never been done before.
Well, yeah. So I think that themes, those are really fun to explore and really well presented.
Yeah, I think it's funny to talk about a movie like this after watching Amadeus, where Tanner's like, and so this is what he goes, that's what the movie says about God and what it says about all these things, and everything everywhere says like, man, you hit a guy with a dildo until his nose starts bleeding, and that's all you got to know about the world, and I think there is something nice about that, and now it's my turn to get a little pretentious for a moment here.
Here we go.
We all gotta do it.
Yeah, I've started using the Criterion channel. So already I'm smarter than half of the people in the audience, right? Because I'm using the Criterion channel.
Yes.
And I watched the other day Paprika, which I watched and I went, I don't get it. And so I was
Fair.
watching this what do you do when you don't understand something? You let someone else tell you how you're supposed to feel about it, right? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I watched this.
Obviously.
I watched this YouTube.
That's what Quest is for.
Yeah, I watched this YouTube video about surrealism in Paprika, and just surrealism as just an intellectual notion, and I think to your point, Timo, about like potential confusion. Is it a confusing plot? What are we supposed to get out of the divorce storyline? I think ultimately it doesn't really matter, because when you really start to think about what happens and everything everywhere all at once, it starts to get a little hazy. Like, okay, so what dimension are we in? Why are we like why can I phase shift here? I don't know if I could give you like a point by point explanation of what happened. But to return to Paprika, just as it doesn't matter in that film what this silly refrigerator man is up to, it doesn't really matter how you phase shift or do all this shit and everything everywhere.
Yeah.
Because the film is just this big soup. And I think you got to decouple yourself from reason a little bit to get something out of it. What I like about Everything Everywhere is, Timo, contrary to what you're saying, I don't think the movie's messaging is clear at all. Because I think it has a million things to say. But not to its detriment. I almost view Everything Everywhere as being like inside my own head. Because in my head, 9 million things are happening concurrently. And I'm living 14 different lives that I'm imagining for myself. And there's something cool about this movie that just feels like this like neural link of just synapses firing incorrectly and weirdly, and being able to sort of trace through those in like a maze that has no finite start or finish, a lesson or an idea. And I think this is a movie with a lot of lessons and ideas about just how to live your life.
Yeah,
you might even say 12 rules for your life or something like that, wouldn't you?
No. Yeah,
I
Abram,
think
you
we're
bring
in
up
agreement,
the
Abram.
idea
I think we
of
just use different words for it, because I do agree with what you say there. The lessons for life to me are the themes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Abram brought up the 9 million things going on in your head at once. And I want to connect that back to how Tucker said this was a film for the modern age like we've never really seen before. And I did a little bit of digging myself. I'm not a man who's opposed to picking up a shovel and digging into an interview or two. But the Daniels were not shy about talking about, like, yeah, this is really born out of how modern people exist in concurrence with the internet. And how there are 9 million things happening in front of your eyes at every turn. And there's a wide multiverse, even, of things you can experience and witness, and lives that you can, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Vicariously live through.
Yeah, there's like the screenshots
and
of Twitter on Reddit and the Reddit on the Twitter and the 4chan on the Reddit and the, that's like the multiverse web.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
really
how they brought that sort of way of thinking into creating everything everywhere all at once, but also the feelings that seems to have created in older generations, like the generation that Evelyn and Wayman belong to, but also the generation that Joy belongs to. And I do want to talk to, I name drop Albert Camus, or maybe it's Albert because he's French. Who cares?
Freaking frogs, man.
I name dropped him, and we're all going to sound a bit pretentious here, but I'm going to open it up. The only thing I know Camus for is that he invented absurdism, essentially, and he has that line that's like, we must imagine Sisyphus happy, which I think about quite a lot, actually. Because Sisyphus, obviously, the Greek myth of the guy rolling the rock up the hill, and how this is a torturous for him. He's been cursed with this for all eternity. But Camus said, what if Sisyphus is us, and that daily modernity is what gives life meaning? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
I'm getting.
I want you to tie it to the
I'm
movie.
getting it.
Oh, well, okay. Once I touch the movie, the line that everyone knows, it's been posted on Twitter a million times. In another life, I would have loved doing taxes and laundry with you.
Yeah.
Wayman's whole character is he brings joy to the everyday mundanity that he's found himself in. And this is juxtaposed with Evelyn being, wanting for that thing that will take her to a better life, to be a singer, a novelist, what have you. Yeah. And the ultimate lesson is that we're given the life that we are given, and you make the most of it. You find the joy in it, like Wayman has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a great...
Does that make sense with what I was saying?
Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
you
no,
knitted
absolutely.
those together very well.
Yeah. And I think it's very easy to tie those themes back to Wayman. And I think what's really interesting about the cast that we have here is that each of them brings something unique to the themes of this film. And I think that the way that they influence one another and evolve across the course of the film supports each theme in very unique and interesting ways. And I think it is the fact that we have so many themes, which absolutely can be overwhelming, but that feels a little more honest than most films. I've got a lot of things going on in my head, as Abram talked about. I'm always worried about something. I'm thinking about things. I'm thinking about the way that I impact people and the nature of perspective and all these fucking things that go on in my head. And it drives me bonkers sometimes. But I really feel like this film reflects that in a very real way, in that, yeah, sometimes things are messy. And you can find the good in the mess. And even if you aren't the best at what you do, one of the core things that Evelyn learns is that she might be the line that Alpha Wayman says is that you have the potential to do everything because you're so bad, or you have the potential to do anything because you're so bad at everything. And I think that that is a really interesting, that is even tied back later when Evelyn is learning to fight like Wayman, and that incredible sequence, like, this is how I fight. I think that's one of the best scenes in the movie. But that, like, there's always something to love. Even in a universe where a stupid universe where we have hot dogs for fingers, we get very good at using our feet. And it's these ridiculous concepts of hot dog fingers and playing a piano with your toes and training your pinky so you can flick a guy up in the air. All these things are ridiculous but so creative that they make these really deep, heartfelt themes resonate with the characters, but with me on a personal level, because I enjoy things being presented without a veneer of seriousness. I think that silliness and creativity and thinking outside of the box, even when it goes maybe too far, is the strongest way to communicate thoughts and feelings and themes to other people and allow them to not feel bogged down by everyone else. And the way that we learn about each of these characters throughout the movie, each character hits me in a specific thematic way that I haven't really seen most films try to do. Because you talk about the themes of Wayman, you talk about the themes of Evelyn, and the themes of Joy and Jobu Tupaki by Tangent, and then Gong Gong in there, and Deirdre Bobeirdre. Like, each of these characters brings some aspect of their own personality to what themes are, and that's just what life is. People bring their own ideas to things, and no one thinks the exact same way. And the way that this film represents that, I think, just meshes so well with what I think the ultimate concept of film can really be.
Tucker, I like this idea that you've presented of that these characters kind of stand in for different thematic, thematic tentpoles, I'll say. Wayman definitely is like this optimist character. He described as a fighter at one point in the film, and his way of fighting is to just like not really let anything get him down, and just like to keep going and to choose to find the good in everything. And Joy's character is the one who is like, is twice removed, this like kind of like aimless, like not really knows what's going on character, whose role model was the same and has descended into this state of nothing matters, nihilism, like can't, I will admit, I am like a very anti-nihilist. I really dislike that mode of thinking. I find it to make me very unhappy, and I find great joy. And I did before watching this movie.
Joy.
In just like the everyday shit that happens. That's like, it's fun, and there's always things. And so I came into this movie like basically already siding with the characters that would win, which made me feel pretty good. But I think that the way that specifically the film solves this sci-fi battle between Jobu Tupaki and Evelyn is really solved by Evelyn and Joy connecting, and the stuff that Evelyn has learned in this journey comes back to the home universe, wherein Evelyn can be a mother and can be a compassionate figure who sees Joy and says to her, like, you feel the same stuff that I do. I'm a total sucker for movies and TV
in many ways
that talks about feelings. I love it. Come on, let's have more talking about feelings. I think our society doesn't do such a great job about it, and so it's so I don't know, it gives me hope to see films like this that are very honest about how it is to live in today, and also like allow characters to have realistic feelings that then affect, in this case, a cool, fun, wacky, zany sci-fi story, but other, in other cases can be very heartfelt and very grounded. I think that
Yeah.
this intermeshing of our like nihilism, optimism with the family drama like really succeeds in making a powerful story, and a story that to me like when all the messages were coming at me, they all just were like fitting into one big puzzle, and I just felt like I was seeing the whole picture as I watched the movie. I saw the picture as I watched a picture. Um,
A motion
a
picture
motion picture, yeah.
for the ages.
Abram, anything to add?
Yeah. I want to pivot to the script a little bit because I think that the script does
Yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
of the heavy lifting for making these themes. I think seem legitimate because I think there's a sense to sort of write in a heady way sometimes, or make your characters become a mouthpiece for an idea. And
Yeah.
I think that everything I wrote does a good job of avoiding that a little bit. I mean, usually whatever film Twitter has to say makes me angry. It makes me want to disassociate with whatever they're talking about.
Yeah.
But even film Twitter couldn't make me dislike the laundry and taxes line because I think that's a great sort of encapsulation of what the film does right on a writing level, wherein Wayland doesn't.
That's why they call it writing.
Wayland just like
No, that's Wayland Butani is Alien. You're thinking of Waymond.
With an M.
Waymond. Sorry, Waymond. He doesn't really know how to express himself. Ultimately, he's like this. I would just like to do this with you. It's a very intimate line. It's not a man. In an alternate universe, I'd be happy just living through the mundanity of life with you every day until we died. It's sort of cinematic.
I wouldn't have hit the same.
Yeah. It's like a cinematic and iconic way to phrase that, but it feels like something I could hear somebody say. At the same time, the sort of like a genuine sense of emotion, I think, is showcased quite beautifully in the moment when we're sort of like filmically building this great moment of like emotional release, wherein Evelyn tells Gon that Becky is Joy's girlfriend, and sort of film expectation, which would have you believe that they're going to all rejoice in this moment, and the mother and daughter bond will be healed, the bond will be reforged, and Joy's like, "Go fuck yourself! I can't believe you just did that." It's these are people trying to understand emotions that they can't quite comprehend, much in the same way the audience is trying to comprehend the film. I think so when we're in the parking lot, and and Evelyn's like, you're fat and you got a tattoo, and I hate your girlfriend or whatever she says. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. You're leaving me space to intuit, and you're leaving me space to sit with these lines, and you're not just shoving shit at me, despite it being a film entirely predicated visually on showing me things. There's a lot of subtlety and I think authenticity to the ways that the characters speak and the things they say to each other.
Yeah. I think we can use this to transition a little bit, unless Tanner, did you have like something specific to reply to that?
Kinda, yeah. I want to talk about in this Tucker. I'm gonna read your mind a little bit.
We have all
here.
the time in the world. Don't worry, we'll get to it.
Yeah. We can. I wanted to
There are
mention
no rules. We can do whatever we want.
Evelyn's character arc through the film, and it ties into what Abram was saying about the characters feeling real, and sort of the Daniels writing this film, finding a way to subvert your expectations to what a more saccharine moment might be. I like her character arc in this because she goes from this point of obviously not understanding what's going on with the multiverse to, okay, my daughter is in danger, I need to save her because I love my daughter. And that's a constant through the film. Evelyn loves her daughter and wants to save Joy. So she gets to a point where she's finally fighting Jobu Tupaki. She's sort of harnessed the powers of fracturing her consciousness across the multiverse. And we think we've gotten to this point in the film where like, this is it. This is where it turns. This is where we've drawn the line delineating good and bad in this film. And Evelyn's got it. And then she says, Jobu Tupaki, you're the reason why my daughter is sad. You're the reason why she's gay even. And we're like, oh, she hasn't gotten it yet. We have more development for this character to do. And I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is a very interestingly paced film. There's a number of times where you're like, oh, is this the ending? There's even a point in the middle of the film where they literally end the movie with credits.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues on. We have more time to spend with these characters and more time to let them grow. And of course, it really happens a lot, especially even at the end, where Evelyn has to reconcile and really understand Waymond's way of fighting, the empathy, the not even so much trying to understand how Joy feels, but literally just being there for her, being in that moment with her at that moment. Yeah.
I like the part. I like the part where Waymond says, "This is how I win."
This
Great line, yeah.
On. But, sorry, go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah. I don't
Sorry.
know. Honestly, I have no idea where I was going with that.
Let's talk about Evelyn. Let's talk about Michelle Yeoh. Let's talk about Evelyn.
Oh,
She's
yeah,
obviously the.
Yeah, I think we can
main
tie this
center.
into the performances. That's not what I was going to say, but let's use the same
okay.
transition and say, let's say this is what I was going to say.
Okay.
Transitioning a little bit to the performances, I think that they are alongside the script, as Abram was talking about, part of the reason why so many of these moments are sold well. I think not only do we get some of the most passionate and genuine emotional sequences from each of these actors that I've seen in many movies, let alone having like three great performances in one movie, but they also what are you chuckling about?
I love the three or no three.
Yeah,
as
well,
you
I was
thought
gonna
about
say,
it.
oh, Gong Gong and Deirdre Babirja, but no, we know they're ancillary. But is that also they sell the sci-fi wackiness part of it in a really interesting way, and I think that compounds on itself. They both support each other really well, and I really love how they portray showing other versions of characters in this movie. The way that we're introduced to it is that Waymond will go into a coma for like half a second, wake up, and then be able to do whatever the hell he wants. He's jumping over the laundry thing. He's doing dodge rolls on the floor. He's doing the fanny pack fight sequence, as we'll talk about.
That scene on the TV, I had no clue where it was going.
Good. Yes, exactly. And I think that the way that it's paced in revealing these things is also really excellent, because we get that tease of him jumping around on the TV screen, which is great, and it's like portrayed like through their shoulders, and it zooms in. You see him cross multiple screens, which is like really fun editing and visually. But then the sequence in the elevator where he dips down his head, pulls out the umbrella, zips it down, like swings it up in like a swirl pattern, and then sort of proceeds to explain to Evelyn what's going on, kind of halfway, not fully, she doesn't understand. It's paced in such a way that we get teases of these performances, it leans a little bit more heavily into them, and then once we're comfortable in the concept that Evelyn can be, the shy, scared, worried person that she was at the beginning, or she can be incredibly strong and fast, and she's learning that she has these abilities, or she can be in other universes where she is being romantically emotional, or she's being a famous movie star, or whatever it is. The way that the movie builds these things is a really great cinematic language, because admittedly, I was more overwhelmed the first time I saw it naturally, but as you learn more about this film and the way that they had to write these things and edit these things in order for them to work at all, it's one of the most impressive feats of screenwriting and editing and acting combined, to where when Evelyn is like slapped between dimensions, that's like 4 different shots in 4 different locations that they had to make seamlessly transition, and it makes total sense. And that's all sold by the performances of watching Waymond hold his eyes and then look up like that, and boom, he's Alpha Waymond, and you can tell from his mannerisms and Ke Kwan's performance what's going on immediately without any confusion or hesitation.
I think that's a really important point, that the difference between these different multiversal versions, the multiversal versions, say that like 6 times really quickly.
Yeah.
The performances carry it so much. You're so right. Like I'm totally bought in to the idea that these are kind of totally different people, when in reality, in the shot, it's one actor and they're just changing. That is, I will admit, did not think about that while I was watching the film, really, because I was just invested in what was happening. And so to hear that is like, it makes a lot of sense to me. What I think about all of these elements of the sci-fi and the multiverse is that because the multiverse and the those sci-fi elements make just enough sense to me. They're plausible by just enough that I am led through and can see all the wacky zany stuff as being being caused by our sci-fi nonsense. And because the sci-fi nonsense is explained and seems to have rules and, functions predictably, except for when we throw in some new tool or some new method, I can view the moment like when the film ends in the, and it's like when the film ends in the middle, I'm like, okay, but we're in another multiverse. Like we are somewhere else.
Yeah.
These things, I may be seeing them and just taken like literally at face value on what am I watching in this movie at this exact moment may be totally like, everywhere as I shake my hands around. Like, I think that because I've seen how all of this relates together, even if I couldn't really pinpoint exactly, how we've got from one spot to another, I could just accept that this is how this film universe works, and therefore crazy shit can happen all the time in which I'm like, oh, haha, yes, okay, I understand. Makes sense to me, even though it doesn't make sense. I know where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think the movie makes any sense. But I think sometimes we need to decouple out like the bar for a movie being good to it making like internal logical sense. Like art doesn't need to be like have like a linear and like cogent internal logic to it, because ultimately at a certain point I'm like, how in the fuck do you eat, like swallowing like a metal frog off of a shelf lets you know that you are definitely going to become a sign spinner, and then you're going to be able to like boomerang a riot shield around.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm not 15 and I've seen something other than CinemaSins, so I don't care. And I think that at a certain point, the film sort of stands as a rejection to the idea that we need to stop and explain what the gizmos and the gadgets do. All you need to know is, brother, there's the mystery machine has been turned into the Nebuchadnezzar, and you've got a bunch of people in here hooked up to a fucking machine, and they're telling Evelyn what to do, and that's all you need to know.
Yeah, it works just enough.
Yeah,
mystery machine.
I think it works just enough, and the more that you, again, as I have, watch the movie and learn about the creative process, there is a logic there. It's very hard to put together. Sometimes doesn't exactly work, but I think I'm watching it, I'm sold into the fact that the people who made this movie know it. They know how it works. There is a backstory to these things. There are scenes that are deleted and backstories that we never learn about that are in their minds when they're connecting things together and creating insane concepts, but ones that are so visually clear and entertaining that someone like Timo can watch this for the first time. And guess what? We all watched this for the first time at one point. And completely understand what's going on. And it's the way that it portrays the multiverse through those wacky moments are part of why I personally really love this movie. I was talking about goofiness, I was talking about creativity, and it's the scenes where they have to do something ridiculous to gain their power that really, like, they sell the humor and the sci-fi concept, boom, like X marks the spot. I really love when you have to watch all the verse jumpers from the Alphaverse like do their wacky things in the one room in order to get whatever ability it is to fight Evelyn in that moment. And you see a guy humping a lamp, you see someone singing Ave Maria, someone skinning his butt on the printers. Like, these things are ridiculous. Each one in and of themselves is a joke, but we have learned that the more ridiculous something is, the more the greater power that it has to slingshot you to somewhere else, that we're very sold into, like, oh no, actually this could be kind of serious for her, even though we're watching a guy lick a pillar in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I just love that concept that they come up with for this multiversal jumping, the verse jumping, just because it serves itself. It's just a vehicle to have fun, weird stuff happen, and that's what this film is concerned with doing. It's concerned with being fun and weird, of course, but also hitting you in the feels at a certain point. Yeah. And if I can refocus us on the performances, I want to reel us back in. I want to talk about Ki-hee Kwan, and I also need to get to my performance hot take.
Better not be the same one, Tanner.
Okay, I love Ki-hee Kwan. We've talked about how he can effortlessly go between the Waymond we know and the Alpha Waymond. I really just want to shout out my favorite line reading from him, and it's a point of like how just good at comedy he is in this film. It's you don't even see him on screen when he says it, but the delivery of what happened to my hand?
Yeah.
After he gave himself all the paper cuts. That's that's maybe one of my favorite comedy line readings of the film.
What about the moment when they have to go out into the hall and he's like, just act natural, and goes, what's happening? Oh god! And
Oh
like,
no! Oh my god! What's going
so
on?
fucking funny. Oh my god.
He's really great, and I'm so glad to see him, get power back into Hollywood with such a fantastic role, and powering into a Best Supporting Actor win, presumably, almost certainly. But my hot take. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We gotta talk about Ki Kwan. Let him respond.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
First of all, if you're one of the people that immediately after he won that Golden Globe and got an amazing speech said he should be short round again, I hope something catches on fire in your house. That's the first.
Nothing major. Maybe just like a towel or a house plant.
A very small fire that leaves no damage, just enough to spook you a little bit. That's what I want to have happen. Don't wish harm on anybody. Just a little bit of a nerve shaking.
Light property damage.
But in all seriousness, he is the heart of the movie to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
The reason for me that Everything Everywhere All at Once works is because of his performance. 100%. He looms so large for me in what the film's not only to your point, talk about what he sort of becomes a vehicle for thematically, but just the sort of authenticity he brings to his performance. This movie to me would be significantly worse if anybody else was him. You see your point about line reading, when he says, "I think it's time for a family discussion," as Gong Gong is about to shoot Joy, I fucking crack up just thinking about it. Because he brings this like Luigi's Mansion, like wiggly fingers, tippy toed, running about places energy to the movie that I think is really lovely. But there's a real like power and resilience in him too, and obviously he gets his moment to explain it as he talks about and his "This is how I win" speech, which I think is a very it is a very
still good though.
It's a very good moment. But he is just this like consistent rock for me. The way you sort of see the way he emotes this sort of disappointment when Evelyn isn't there for him.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, but his want to keep trying, or when he or I love the moment after, as the film is ending, she kisses him when he's going to the bathroom.
That moment that I think might be the most romantic kiss I've ever seen on film. When she leans in and kisses him and then like wraps her arms around him like that and then backs away and smiles a little bit. I know that feeling. That's how I feel when I kiss my girlfriend. And ritualist, love my life, God rest her soul, But that moment is sold so well by both of them.
I agree. I'm just saying I love Ki Kwan's performance. That's all I'm saying.
I'll throw my praise in there real quick.
Go ahead.
Because I think he is like so lovable in this film. Even when he is trying at the beginning, when he's trying to get the divorce, and as later in the film we see that it's kind of misguided or whatever. When he comes around at the end, I just love him. I find him so endearing, and to really, you're right, Abram, to be the heart of the film. So I really like his performance.
Tanner, what was that thematic line you wrote down earlier that you told to me? Something about goofiness or foolishness?
Oh, yes. Waymond teaches us not to conflate joyousness with foolishness.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's most interesting about his character on like a writing level there's a much better video about this on YouTube that I will link in the description than I can ever explain this, but is that Waymond doesn't have a character arc. He is static. From the beginning to the end, he knows his way of thinking, and he is committed to that. And it isn't him who changes, it's his impact on other people that changes them, and honestly, changes the audience. The way that you view him at the beginning, he's kind of just like the goofball sidebar character, to becoming the serious emotional heart of the movie, not only for the audience, but for all the characters, is incredibly powerful, especially in the way that he is an example of positive masculinity. I mean, he's an oppressively optimistic guy that uses empathy and kindness to change the world for the better. But because he doesn't have a character arc, the film doesn't make the fact that he's positive and not aggressive seem like something that needs to be changed. Because in so many movies, you'll see the like beta male, like softer guy be like, come into his own at the end, like Back to the Future, where Christopher McGovern's character is kind of a wiener at the beginning and then like socks Biff in the face by the end. He doesn't need to have that moment because we realize that he's right. and then we come to understand his values. That makes him such an important character thematically and writing-wise.
So he's this movie's Tyler Durden.
Anyway, I briefly want to talk about, because Doug, you say
Tanner,
that
you
the
have
audience,
a hot take. Are you gonna ever give us this hot
I'll
take?
get there,
I'm like,
Timo.
oh my
Calm
god,
it.
50 minutes and I haven't
Cool your
heard this hot
jets.
take yet, dude.
Cool your jets. It's just as hot as ever. It's hot and ready for you. Now, just
gonna
one
be
second,
lukewarm
because
by the time we
Tucker
get
talked
to it.
about how.
We'll reheat it.
Yeah.
We'll read it.
Microwave.
Tucker talked about how the audience, learns about Wayman's way of thinking and way of fighting, and that's why he doesn't necessarily have a character arc. And of course, it's also because Evelyn learns these things.
Yeah.
And I did want to just circle back to Michelle Yeoh is fantastic in this. We talked about Katie Kwan. Michelle Yeoh is fantastic. She takes you through this entire film, the multiversal nonsense of it all. She's the anchor. She's the audience in. But my hot take, we're finally here. It's still warm. Don't worry. I don't think
That was hot.
that Stephanie Shu is that good in this film. I
Okay.
like her as Joy, but I'm not sold on the Jobu Tapaki stuff. And it largely only comes in, and we can talk about this however much or little you guys want to. It only comes in when she's doing like the I'm a cocky villain, and I've seen all this before, and I'm not scared of you, and I'm so cool and chill about everything that's going on. I don't know. I just don't care for it. And she's a great performer. Like I said, I enjoy her when she is Joy, and in that final scene in the parking lot between her and Michelle is fantastic. They're both bringing it. But with that Jobu Tapaki stuff, the line readings are just not hitting me in the right place.
I don't even like. I don't like. Here's my feel. Here's
Fair point.
here's my
All right.
here's my feeling.
Just saying.
Do you agree? I'm smelling agreement here.
Like, I don't even really get the point of Jobu Tapaki. I mean, let's back it up. I get it. I understand Jobu Tapaki.
He gets it.
To a certain point, but I feel like largely she's not really a good antagonist. She's more of an idea than a character, and I think that's part of the
That's
issue
true,
with
yeah.
performance is that she really doesn't have anything to work with. I mean, I think the moment of the most charisma is when she shows up in the hallway, and blows the guy up out of confetti and has a bottle of organic ketchup and all this shit.
Ding!
Yeah, it's cool, but then she just kind of fades away, and the idea of the bagel with everything on it becomes far more important than Jobu Tapaki, and like I just don't care ultimately. I think that Joy is the interesting part, and Jobu Tapaki it's this moment in the film wherein we were talking before about how Waymond or Evelyn, Alpha Waymond, Alpha Evelyn are basically interchangeable, and they flow and they intermingle, and they are a difference of performance. Jobu Tapaki is so separate from Joy for so much of the movie that I feel like these are two characters, so I'm supposed to care about them separately, or they're supposed to mean something more separately, but they really don't to me. They're like two sides of a coin, but you cut the coin in half, and you're keeping like the two sides
Now
of the
there's
coin.
4 sides of the coin.
There's 4 sides of 2 coins.
Holy shit.
But I guess that's so Tanner, I agree with you on a performance level, but I think it's a deeper thing of just I don't care about Jobu Tapaki as anything more than a stand-in for what the movie is trying to sort of unravel.
Yeah.
I-
Jobu Tapaki is
Yeah,
nihilism.
that's what I was going to
That's
try
the
to give
thing.
my whole explanation of it. If I were to explain it, I would say Jobu Tapaki is the nihilism within Joy as the character. Because I could almost make this whole reading as none of that multiversal nonsense is true at all. It's just this imagination and this method for this family to resolve this drama. And
Of course.
I mean,
Who knows? It was all a
who
dream.
knows? It's better if it
The top's still spinning.
it's better if it isn't, okay? But like it could
course.
be, I think, and the film would still.
Is it ever?
Yeah, no, it's.
Maybe Super Mario Bros. 3
I think that
What?
the way
or 2 or wait,
let me speak.
never mind.
Keep going. Keep going.
The way
Stay on track.
that Jobu Tapaki is like this, like basically just represents everything about nihilism, makes it so that while she doesn't have like a character, she isn't a character because of this stuff that they've set her up being split across the billions and millions of multiverses. And so
Yeah.
I think that the way in
infinite to be more specific.
Sure. I mean, there are infinite multiverses. The way that Evelyn in the multiverse storyline has to connect
Alphaverse.
still with, well, there's many multiverses and whatever. You guys are
Infinite.
derail per speed run any percent. Here we go. When Evelyn has to connect with Jobu Tupaki by convincing her not to do the one thing that nihilism says to do once you've fully accepted it. The answer to nihilism is to kill yourself, which is what it seemed to me like the path that Joy was leading down. That actually seemed like it was going to happen to me in the film. But, of course, because it's a nice, happy, feel-good story by the end of it, we get that moment of literally pulling her out of the bagel. And while I think that in the lead-up, to me, it serves more Jobu Tupaki as like this explainer character who gets that badass moment in the hallway scene. But then kind of shortly after, it becomes clear that Evelyn isn't going to kill her because she still sees Jobu Tupaki as her daughter Joy, no matter like what is going on, and learns that this, complicated backstory. That story like takes over for me. And I see her as I don't see her as a villain because I don't think Evelyn sees her as a villain. And to me, I kind of got it immediately when that happened. I was like, Evelyn, in order to succeed, cannot do much harm at all to Jobu Tupaki. She has to talk to her and, get closer as two beings in the multiverse and in the real story, two family members and people. And that is like the way to solve problems and issues, and to overcome nihilism and to not kill yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're. Oh, sorry, Tucker. Did you have something to add on that?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents on that because I agree mostly with Timo. I think that her being a stand-in for these themes is the intention of that character, and it is in the more quote-unquote humanizing moments of Jobu Tupaki's story that I think that she is a decent character, but she's obviously not as great a character as the actual Wong family that we've gotten to know and that have character arcs across the film. But I think the fact that Timo's right, there's this nihilistic aspect to the character, but we even get other ties in that her ridiculous backstory of being Alpha Joy, who was pushed too far by her mother and her brain shattered, and she's now like trying to figure out what reality can be. And we get this conversation when they're rocks of the fact that every new scientific discovery makes us feel like smaller parts of the universe, which is something that I'm sure we've all experienced of our own uselessness in the grand scheme of the cosmos. These are gigantic themes, but they all resonate down to why Joy feels disconnected from her mother in the universe, the core universe, not the Alphaverse, is that her mother is pushing her too far, pushing her away, expecting too much out of her, expecting her to be a certain way, and Jobu Tupaki represents that in the ridiculous sci-fi conceptual level and the backstory level. But these things synergize in such an interesting way that once the film is reaching that crescendo and it's getting a little bit harder to tell which Joy is Jobu Tupaki and which one, like what's going on with Evelyn and her thoughts about each of these characters, I feel like there's a mesh there. They connect right as the movie is reaching its crescendo, and I understand Evelyn's empathy for Jobu Tupaki's plight and the fact that she's not, as she says, she's not trying to destroy the universe. She's trying to destroy herself and wants to find someone that can reach her on that level. Literally understand the concept of like the omniverse, which only, as we find out through this movie, 2 people can do. She doesn't want to be alone. And that's what Joy wants. She wants her mother to understand her on a human, personal level. And that's what Evelyn has to learn to do with Jobu Tupaki by understanding the concept of the multiverse and exploring her backstory and listening to what she has to say. These are all things, like Timo was kind of alluding to, that can be easily represented by a conversation between 2 people at a laundromat, is sitting down on a bed and having a conversation about the struggles that you have, or that I feel like you're not giving me the time of day, or that you don't understand me on this level. Having that conversation can be done through story, just normal human talking. I've done it before. I've talked to people. But the movie gives it this operatic, cosmic scale by introducing ostensibly the heat death of the multiverse as the villain. And I think that personal side, being able to be blown up into something unimaginably cosmically large is an incredible strength of this movie. And it is only because we have such a ambiguous, wishy-washy villain that is able to conceptually encapsulate nihilism and the end of the universe and depression and all these crazy things.
Okay, we're over an hour here, and I know we want to get to scores, but I have more things to talk about. Believe it or not.
Oh, you're
whoa.
high
There's
on
plenty to talk
you're
about.
high on crack and fucking cocaine, Tanner. If you think we've done
No,
all of this
no way.
anytime soon.
Oh,
No
we're
way.
not. Well, I thought we were wrapping up. But well, fellas, then allow me to just give us another talking point, if you
Perfect.
may.
I think I wrapped it up pretty nicely. I'm proud of that moment.
That was
It
good.
should be.
Thank you. Timo, can you praise me,
You
please?
did very well, Tucker.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Now he won't cry himself to sleep tonight.
Probably
Probably not. Jamie Lee Curtis is fine. I think that Harry Shum Jr., who's the guy with the raccoon on his head, he's better. Whatever,
So funny.
doesn't matter. It's weird to me that she's getting a supporting actress nomination, but to each their own. I want to talk about the editing in this and the direction, because those go hand in hand, especially in this film.
Yeah.
And it's, obviously the showy stuff is there. The reel at the Oscars will be the fucking 150 different multiverses going by in 10 seconds. But I want to talk about the fights, because this film, as much as it is about wacky multiverses, eating chapstick, hot dog fingers, and the feels, talking through these emotions, these grand themes of hopelessness, of nihilism between you and your daughter who you're disconnected from. It's also an action movie.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things. We said that up top. And I was really wowed by the action more on this rewatch than I was in the theater. Just like looking at how the Daniels shoot these sequences. Lots of steady cam, lots of cutting, but you never lose the sense of where you are in the scene.
Yeah.
Lots of focusing on. I just keep coming back to like the when Alpha Waymond is like fighting and he's got a little folder of paper and he just whips it back and then we cut back to it. That's good sound, that's good editing, that's good direction. It's all these things, and I'm like, these are pretty incredible. I also learned today that, and this may be a shock to two of you, the Daniels directed the Turn Down for What music video,
Huh.
Really?
and
Okay.
it's another puzzle piece that I didn't know was missing from their directorial style. is this sort of like this look and feel that the action has within a Daniels frame.
Yeah, I
I agree, Tanner. I think that and I'm gonna let you think for a moment. Not for too long though.
Thank you. I need to
He's just playing Turn Down for What in his head. Yeah.
I think that this film takes a lot of inspiration from Asian cinema, both in moments like when we're in the movie Starverse. God, feels like a Wong Kar-wai
Yeah.
movie. Just like it's like such quotations from that. I think that the kung fu-esque combat that is prevalent throughout the whole. I mean, there's like a couple silly moments with some other like fighting styles that we get to learn about. The film tells us how these characters are going to fight each other. But I think that the way that this choreography is so intricate, it's so planned out, and as you said, it's so clear in how we see it because it's so intricate, and they're not hiding messy punches or whatever. They're all like really doing the work here. And
choreographed by a fight choreography YouTube channel, group of guys who
cool.
each of them play some of the fighter characters. So there's the bald guy, there's the guy who tried to stick the butt plug up his ass. Those are YouTube choreographer guys turned movie choreographers / turned actors / turned fighting Michelle Yeoh in this movie people, which is really cool that they like were able to pull these guys out, and some of the best fight choreography I've ever seen.
I think it's very good. I don't know if it's like the best I've ever seen, but the way that it works so well with the story makes it very entertaining to watch. The butt plug fight scene.
Yeah.
God, there's a lot of sexual imagery in this movie. I think many undergraduates in years to come will have to write thesis papers about all the different anuses and vaginas and stuff like that show up in this movie. I think that that's going to have to be there. And penises too, don't forget about them. But
I can't.
BDSM gear
like
aplenty.
this film is horny, but in a weirdly asexual manner.
course, yeah.
The fight scenes utilize the zaniness of the film that we get through this sci-fi nonsense to make it more entertaining and make the situations wackier and to make this choreography even more creative because there's weird added elements that wouldn't make any,
course,
you know,
yeah.
would have no way to exist in any other film. So I really liked it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've got a lot of sort of intersecting thoughts about the action because I think the action is for me the worst part of the movie, but not on a technical level because I think technically it's actually very good, for a number of reasons. The first is that it takes a book out of horror pervert turned sci-fi director Lee Whannell, who made Upgrade. Which is a very good movie.
Oh yeah, it is very like steady cam tracking across the hits and stuff like that, like Upgrade.
Yeah,
is.
it's the idea that you're shooting this sort of high frame rate, confidently and clearly choreographed action, wherein then the camera becomes sort of part of a motion. So we see a steady camera move suddenly to be a steady camera somewhere else, and I think that's a really effective way to communicate sort of like the kinetic impact of action without making to shit on the producers of this movie a Russo brothers style action sequence. So I think that the action is technically very, very impressive, and this is most clear in a moment that isn't an action moment, but I want to mention it anyway. This film moves between aspect ratios really well, I think.
So interestingly, yeah.
There's a great moment when we go into Alpha Evelyn and she's on stage, and we sort of see as though a performance is beginning. The almost as though the crowd is getting quieter. The aspect ratio change twice.
Yeah.
Really
It's not
deliberately.
Evelyn, but I'll let it slide.
It's all the same. I think that's a really effective moment of just like making the change in aspect ratios, which I usually find to be very annoying in movies, to be quite deliberate.
Yeah.
Sidebar, I just thought I'd forget that. This is where
Right.
this is where we get to my big point of contention with the movie.
Okay.
I don't like a lot of the conceptual action on a conceptual level, not an executional level. I think about, first of all, the butt plug sequence is a pretty clear negative against the film for me, and it's sort of indicative of why I think I like the movie a lot less. And it actually begins with the woman who fights with her dog on the leash.
Yeah.
To me, and this is where again my distinction at the beginning of the review being like my objective feeling that this is the film of the year, but subjectively I liked it a lot less. To me, that joke is funny for about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But the film is very, very overindulgent whenever it has an idea. Things just go on and on and on and on. That butt plug action sequence is very long. There's a second guy that has a second butt plug up his ass. And at a certain point, for me, sometimes you overexpose a joke or an idea.
Second butt plug.
Right. As soon as you get to 2 butt plugs, I'm out.
Yeah.
But
One?
But I just think that for me, sometimes they're overexposing their own jokes because they know that they are technically impressive filmmakers. But I start to lose it a little bit. I'm like, I don't... The hibachi, great concept for using... Same with the sign spinning. Great concept for using non-violent occupations in a violent manner. But how long do I really need to see you like cut this, like throw the dog in the fridge and then cut the rope and have the dog fly, and then do we need to walk out here and then the guy with the pipe shows up and then we fight the guy with the pipe and then I've got the pipe and I hit him in the head with his pipe, but then we can't even leave the room yet because then the guy has to jump over the cubicle with his ass cheeks spread to land on the butt plug, which is really something that happens in the movie and it feels weird to explain it, but there's a sense to me of fatigue. I think these action sequences become very fatiguing. And even like the BDSM cave, great idea. Coming out of there with the sign spinning, I like it. The camera moves in very fast anyways in that sequence. But it's too much. I just get tired of it. I think that a lot of these sort of stylistic moves become tiring. And to think about Paprika again for a second, part of why I like that movie so much is because there's long sequences wherein the sort of otherworldly dream shit is not present, or it's present subtly. But in Everything Everywhere, it's a long action sequence with this one sexual innuendo, and then it's right into another action sequence. Or we're jumping between 8 million images. And there's a real sense of spectacle and maximalist, like, skill there. But for me, I think there's a better movie to this movie There's a better version of this movie that has 70% as much going on as this one does. That is better, where the images mean more. Because to me, at a certain point, the butt plug stuff becomes meaningless, and your butt plug should never be meaningless. So
I agree.
Abram, I think
That's been my yearbook quote.
I would say, Daniels, don't be cowards. Release the uncensored cut. Let me see.
I need to see that guy's ass.
Let me see that fight choreo YouTuber's ass.
you know, I think if I were to guess how this movie was made, that might be a little impossible. They might have to do some CGI butthole in there. Mate,
Tanner, I don't think he had actually stuck that up.
yeah. Except for the shot
Sorry
where
to
he pulls it out,
disillusion
where it gets pulled out. That totally up his ass. Abram, I kind of agree with you. I think that, yeah, those fight scenes do get fatiguing and last a little long. I'm not sure if 70% is what the number I would give, but there are points where it's like, okay, like I understand. I get the joke. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So I can see where you're coming from with that. I found myself just giving up or giving into it and being like, okay, we're gonna watch this like, okay, this is gonna go on for a little while. I'm now watching an action sequence was usually what I would my brain would like, my mode of film watching would shift. I'd be like, okay, I'm like not watching this for the drama and the themes and the story. I'm watching this for some kick ass.
Yeah, I think that I'm much more on the side of Tanner for this with the action. It's not my favorite part of the movie. I think that the themes and the concepts and the characters and the performances and all the technical stuff is absolutely why I'm watching this movie. But I think that the energy and creativity of these fight sequences is what helps make this movie so digestible to a modern audience that is used to having a lot of fight sequences in their blockbuster movies. But this is done, I think, a lot more intentionally than so many of those movies, because you're right about the editing and the camera work feeling incredibly intentional. There's not any shaky cam, which can make it try to feel like a little more sloppy. It's just very set, deliberate. Everything was so clearly panned out and needs to be because of the different locations and different concepts that they need to fold into this. And it's that, as you said, I know you don't disagree, but like the technical side of it that makes me know why they needed to do this or thought it was necessary to include this in the movie. And what this film does better than I think almost any other, and why I would lean on it being one of my favorite choreographed fights in films of all time, is that no fight is the same because of how much variety this multiverse and verse jumping concept brings to it. The fight that she's using her pinkies is nothing like the fight where she's using the sign. Is nothing like the fight where Wayman is using the fucking fanny pack. That scene is so funny. Oh my god! But each of these is conceptually different and edited different and played out different because they're using different weapons that I've never seen used in film before. And so anytime they're bringing up a new one, I'm like, okay, they earned making this. They came up with this idea, they edited it, they choreographed it, they add all these sound effects, and if it is long, I would certainly agree in some sections, but I think the way that those are also intercut with other universes that aren't fighting. And the film can so confidently switch between filmmaking styles where it's ripping on a kung fu movie and then it's ripping on a Wong Kar-wai movie, or it's ripping on a western, or it's ripping on a sci-fi or a horror movie or whatever. It jumps between these, and because it's so everywhere, everything everywhere, it's so jumping all over the place, I never feel like I'm in one place for long enough for me to feel fatigued, because you're watching a fight sequence between Evelyn and Joe Chapaki, whatever it is, and then you cut to the universe where she's both a martial artist and a famous actress who was on the red carpet of Crazy Rich Asians, which is kind of funny. And then that is 30 seconds of a breath of fresh air. Okay, we can learn some themes. We can get this cool Wong Kar-wai, high frame rate, slow-mo stuff. We can get the moody lighting. We can get this different version of Waymond. And then I think in very intentionally done and well done transitions, snap back, boom, to the fight. But it's something a little different this time. And they're always trying to outdo themselves with each sequence, and it works so well for me.
I see you, Timo, singing that Eminem song. I see you.
Did I say a Eminem line?
You said snap back to reality, and then it popped in my head too. It's okay. It was good fun. Speaking of, I love the inclusion of absolutely in this film. It's never really drawn attention to, but real '90s and 2000s pop rock fans like yours truly are like, I love it every time it pops up. Okay, I want to talk about VFX
Me too.
next.
Yeah.
Because this film was not nominated
Which
for
is
VFX.
crazy.
In fact, it
Wasn't even shortlisted.
was not even shortlisted, disqualified by the Academy. Well, not disqualified, but like disqualified for even being in contention for the award. They didn't even consider it in like a list of 10 or 15 or however long it was. And I think that's a load of BS personally, because sure, they're not perfect. There's some moments where I'm like, okay, that's not great. Like when the weapon is switching a bunch of times in Jobu Tupaki's hand, or when Evelyn turns into a big rock in the laundromat. I'm like, it's not perfect. But at the same time, the Academy nominated Black Panther: Wakanda Forever for Best Visual Effects. And you just have to recognize, how big was the VFX team for this? 5, 7 people, something like that?
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly
They
not
all
the
were
400
they
million
were-
child slaves that made the
Yeah.
Marvel VFX.
Exactly my point. The Daniels took a picture with these guys. They were all in like an editing bay together. The Daniels were there. They weighed in on this. They probably know all those people personally.
Of course.
Whereas the Marvel and Disney are notorious at this point for exploiting their VFX workers, having a farm of them and underpaying them. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has 4 times the budget of this film, and it probably has just as many moments where I'm like, ooh, that is a notably and memorably bad moment of CGI.
I had none.
So I
didn't
call
notice any.
BS on this.
I didn't notice when I was like Tanner, you're chiefing it, man, because I didn't notice any
Sorry.
parts that were bad. Like
Oh, yeah.
maybe on a rewatch I'll notice them because I'm gonna be paying more attention to these other
And they're
aspects.
by and large, they're fantastic. The VFX are fantastic
And here
in this,
is,
by and large.
I think this movie, strangely, actually compares a lot to another movie that I watched recently from almost 100 years ago, 1927, Fritz Lang, Metropolis. These
Really?
movies are similar in a lot of ways. Tucker, you mentioned the internet. You mentioned how this movie, I think, really is this new modern mode of filmmaking in regards to this new technology, this new social order, the internet. It's got VFX everywhere in so many shots. That's what's really impressive to me about this film is how prevalent all over the place. I bet you like 70, 80% of these shots have some VFX in them, which is a lot. I would really be surprised if even these MCU movies hit that amount of just like VFX saturation. And the reason I make the
I wouldn't be.
comparison,
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be. I think it's probably
okay,
higher.
whatever.
Whatever, doesn't matter.
I think that
Clearly, you didn't see Shang-Chi and the Legend of
Demo, please continue.
I am not
also 70 show.
a religious MCU viewer, but I am a religious silent German film viewer, and so Metropolis has many of these similar elements. And just like the VFX is everywhere in Metropolis, in Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think that this like it is kind of revolutionary. It is kind of this new thing where we see VFX used for almost expressionist, hyperbolic kind of moments. You see Jobu Tupaki's fingernails like change color very rapidly in one scene.
Very cool
And
moment.
it's like,
Yep.
you know, that doesn't like need to be there, but it just adds so much to our understanding of who these characters and really like is a major piece of the cinematic language puzzle.
Yeah.
Very much the same as in Metropolis. I don't know why. I watched both those movies and I'm like,
Interesting
these
connection.
movies really
Yeah.
fit together. Metropolis, a lot about the changing society and the advent of early industrial capitalism, yada, yada, yada. It's kind of boring, but
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Abram,
want to talk
sorry.
about the VFX for a second because I think, here's what I think. I think they're very good.
Finally.
Oh,
What I think makes the film so visually effective is that there's often a very clear anchor to something real in a scene, in a moment, or whatever. The fingernail example, for example. That's her hand, right? And we're futzing with the fingernails, right? You think about a lot of these Marvel sequences wherein the entire thing was made in a computer, and you're like, I can't identify a single pixel on this big flat piece of fucking glass I'm looking at that was actually there when it was being filmed. And so I think the fact that this is a fairly quote unquote low sci-fi in terms of the environments, that
Yeah.
helps make any sort of incongruencies with the effects a little bit less noticeable because I feel like I'm in an actual place.
Yeah.
And I think that we're in an office building or we're in a laundromat
IRS.
or we're hanging out with the IRS, like that
Fair place to go.
that sort of anchors me to something, to where the wackiness is just like a patina over that. I'm not supposed to believe that I'm supposed to believe that I'm on a fucking aircraft carrier and the Navi are climbing up the side of it and we're fighting on it or whatever happens
Yeah.
in kind of forever. But I also want to say this. I don't think that these effects are remarkable for any reason other than how they were made. Now, that might sound a little bit silly because, like, yeah, the fact that they were made under impressive circumstances makes them impressive. And that is true. But ultimately, what I mean to express is that I think a lot of the success of this film is, as we were mentioning in the beginning of the review, the success of the story around it. Like the reason that a lot of people are outraged about the VFX not getting in is because it is those 7 people. Because Everything Everywhere All at Once is a story about these actors and these talents and everybody coming together to make something that seems unbelievable. Like,
Yeah.
so intrinsically, I think they are more interesting. The ways that the visual effects were conceptualized and created is more interesting than what Marvel did. And I think also, pound for pound, probably better. But I'm not usually impressed by visual effects that much. I'm impressed by the story. And I think
Jungle Cruise.
I love Jungle Cruise. I think that the story of the production and mythos of Everything Everywhere is going to push a lot of support for this movie.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it is the fact that you're right. The tying it down to reality is absolutely why this film works and why the visual effects for me feel so well integrated. There are moments where Joy and Evelyn are fighting across 30 different multiverses, and every punch and block is shifting to another place, and it's just the lighting and these people, and then a green screen behind them. But it's because you're focused on the people and not the background that moment is sold. And I think that what is so impressive about this movie is that they're combined with some. Oh God, he's got a plan. He's working on something.
You didn't notice
let-
I pulled a book off
let-
my
let
shelf?
I
I've
digress.
got a big plan.
Is
Oh Lord.
is that this movie also has some of the, for a low budget, for this very passionate creative team, some of the best production design and costume design and makeup and hairstyling that I've ever seen. Again, for this kind of movie. And I think that when you're looking at this office building, and you know, as I do, because I've watched all the behind the scenes special effects and I've listened to the director's commentary, that this IRS office building that they're in is actually a mall. And they built all those cubicles. And the cubicles in the very far back actually just have little pieces of cardboard taped up because you don't need an actual computer all the way back there. And they turned side rooms in this mall into like entire other universes just through production design. And Jobu Tupaki has like actually 30 different costumes just that are sometimes 10 in one scene that are all incredibly distinct. And some of the most impressively designed conceptually costumes I've ever seen. That is what really sells this movie, is that, yes, it's touched up with these special effects in many, many shots, but on face value, on the craft level, they made a lot of this stuff. They made a little like blow up pinky finger that they put in front of the screen, go swing, and then the muscle flexes out. Each of these things are because of the actual craft. Of course, the VFX is a craft as well, but those are all intertwined and on such a high bar of quality that I'm just consistently impressed throughout. Especially, again, once you learn the backstory of this, it becomes even more impressive.
Yeah, Tucker, thank you for bringing up the production design, because honestly, I wouldn't have been mad about a production design nomination for this
me
either. Because I think, because once you told me that it like basically was all done in this mall that they converted them, like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up the costumes as well. Obviously, there's the showy Jobu Tupaki costumes. There's probably dozens of those. But also, I think a sign of a good costume is I can close my eyes and tell you what Evelyn Wong or Waymond Wong or Deidre is wearing.
Yeah.
It's just distinctive looks for all of these characters.
Helpful that it's
and
contemporary,
it's great.
but yeah, you're totally right.
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. And the last of the noms that I want to bring up, and I don't have anything in depth to say about this, is especially on the rewatch again. I love the score of this film.
Yeah.
The score is really
The
cool.
score was
Yeah.
I love.
what clued me into it being a Daniels movie. When I heard it, I was like, this sounds like Swiss Army
You and
Man.
I watched Swiss Army Man like 5 years ago, and it was a great experience, Timo, wasn't it? God.
Because Swiss Army Man incorporates these these very human sort of vocals into the score, whereas this is very like experimental, discordant a lot of the time.
I think it also has those human vocals in moments.
Yeah, of course, it can also be very heartfelt in the moments where the film is being heartfelt, emotional, allowing our characters to express their true feelings towards one another. It swings between these two feelings just as easily as the rest of the film does, and I was at numerous points blown away of like, this music is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Beast. Okay. In the realm
It's Beast.
In the realm of waves that move through the air, I would like to quote from my book here called Film Sound. It's about the sound, Timo's Sound Corner. I won't go on forever. It's only a sentence. I promise. It's not very long. This encapsulates pretty much my entire feeling about the sound design in this film. A little disappointed it didn't get nominated, but I can kind of almost understand why, because I'm going to quote from V.I. Pudovkin, the Soviet thinker from long ago. The role which sound is to play in the film is much more significant than a slavish imitation of naturalism on these lines. The first function of sound is to augment the potential expressiveness of the film's content. And I think that is exactly what the sound in this film does. It's not natural at all. There's random swooshes and dings and stuff that like maybe is coming from the real world, like it could be, but we don't like see it. And I think there are so many elements, like the hot dog fingers are just like, they just sound so fucking gross. Like they're like, like slapping on each other, and like that's disgusting. And that sells so much of the film. I think the sound design, while it's only noticeable, I think, in like really heightened moments, it's totally there to be this like asynchronous like bonus. It's that you can always like tune in and notice. I did listen to the film half on speakers and half on headphones, and I'm kind of bummed about my headphone listening. My roommates were trying to sleep, so I couldn't be on the speakers. It sounded way better on my home speaker setup. Not quite a theater, but the headphones, I was starting to hear some ADR lines, some like sound effects that weren't really like fitting in as well. But on the speakers, man, it sounded great. So I don't know. You're not supposed to listen to movies on headphones, like for real. You really ought to listen to them on speakers. That's how they're designed. So I'm not really making that a fault. So those are my opinions on the sound of this film. It's good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Academy has nominated in other categories what other films the Academy has nominated for sound, to kind of think about how they compare and try to figure out what they were thinking with these nominations.
Sure. I will say on my cheap Black Friday 4K TCL television, it sounded very good. And there's a particular sound design moment I want to highlight to point about S.I.
Pudovkin
said the word augment. And I think a great example of that is when Wayman is trying to give himself paper cuts. The final paper cut has this great like cinematic flourish, but it also has the sound as though you're unsheathing a samurai sword. And I think it's a great moment to what you're saying, Timo, about stretching the experience from just this base level existence of a paper cut to he's a bushido and he's about to go to battle, right? And I think that's very cool. I just want to shout that moment out.
Probably, I credit the Daniels on really driving this inspiration. I bet they really talked to the sound crew that worked on it. I was confused when I watched this film. Like, I was trying to read the credits to find out who did the sound, and I thought I only read, like, for some reason, most of the post-sound crew was, like, way down at the bottom of the credits, but, like, a couple of them were up in, like, the middle, and so there was, like, 3 of them, and I was like, what? 3 people did the sound in this movie? And then, come to find out, no, it's, like, 8 or whatever, which is, like, totally normal, so.
Yeah.
Congrats to an accomplishment.
I also want to note, Bushido is neither the warrior nor the sword, and I thought it was one or the other. It is neither. It is actually.
Isn't it like the state of being or the mindset?
Bushido is a moral code concerning samurai attitudes, behavior, and lifestyle. So there's a little fun word lesson for the day.
And Timo, you're in luck. I had to look it up quick, but 4 of the Best Picture nominees have been nominated in sound, so you'll get to compare. And unfortunately, the Academy did not nominate the Batman for Best Picture, so that's the one.
But we did do a review of it, and I did really love the sound in that movie.
Yes.
Great sound. Great sound.
Uh,
But I think that what you were talking about, Timo, with the fact that this does feel very designed and intentional by the Daniels is what sort of ties this film all home for me. We're talking about these
Mhm.
crafts, these themes, these characters, but is that this feels to me like one of the most directed movies I've ever seen. This is one of the most personal, creative visions that I've ever seen put to screen because it does. Again, as you learn, if you learn about the behind the scenes shenanigans, they were involved with the editing. They were obviously involved with the writing. They were on set. They helped design the special effects.
Directors were on set. Oh my god.
Holy
All right,
God.
I don't need your sass, but they were so heavily involved with each of these elements and built such personal connections to each of the members of their creative team that I easily think that this is the best directed movie of the year. Because when I'm looking for direction, I'm thinking what reflects the mind state and personality of the person driving this creative endeavor. And the Daniels are on a creative vision unlike anyone else working at this level because they pull their inspiration from their YouTube background, from making music videos, from the internet experience that so many of the other creators that are nominated for these kind of awards never had the chance to like grow up and experience. And they're the reason this movie feels so modern, is they can handle the idea of a multiverse because they were raised on The Matrix and they were raised on watching all these superhero
On
cartoons
Jet
and reading
Li's The
comic books and
One.
stuff. True, yes. But and they wear their inspirations on their sleeve, which is something that I have a huge amount of respect for this movie for,
Mhm.
is making a Ratatouille reference, which is a movie we've all seen probably multiple times. A movie I assume we all
I think
really
it's a
like.
raccoon, though.
Oh,
think it's
sorry, I mean
raccoon.
Ratatouille. My bad.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
fact that they can sell a joke like that feels very fresh and modern, that we grew up with, that we recognize as being modern, and they're not afraid to like hide it behind 6 layers of bullshit. That's something that also I think feels very distinct. Is they know what they were inspired by, and they know that you know that, and I think there's a real honesty there that connects me much more to their creative vision than many other people that I can't quite. I feel a little bit disconnect from, but I feel like I can drill into their creative process and their mental state just by watching this film and learning about the choices that they made to create this film in all of its like ridiculously intricate glory, which I think is especially sold. And I'm just very quickly, the editing of this movie, I honestly might say that for me, this is the most impressive use of match cuts I've ever seen, because everything's a fucking match cut and they're match cutting 20 times in 1 second in order to like make an incredibly smooth motion that also conveys the concept of this multiverse, but then also includes, like different backgrounds and different costumes and different lighting. Like the editing, I think this should win editing. It's just more likely now that Top Gun Maverick didn't get nominated for cinematography.
Which is a horse shit, by the way.
Which is ridiculous, which is crazy.
We'll get to it in time.
But the editing and their direction, I think, are the two of the strongest aspects of this film. Again, in a film that I think is at the top of its craft and its technical and its themes and its characters in every category as we've talked about.
Tucker, thank you for basically encapsulating my thoughts on the Daniels and their
That's my
prowess
job.
of direction.
Yeah. I don't know
in
how
this
much
film.
more I have to add. We
It's
said it.
really something incredible. We've gone maybe the longest we've ever gone on a Quest episode on this
I
one.
think
Maybe.
we had to. That's what.
We had to.
Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Shall we give it a score?
You can't see it, but the people are off screen for all of us, pointing guns at our head. All
Talk
of
about
them are
this
there.
for longer.
Yeah, exactly. Both
I
the
could.
Daniels,
Don't forget the production
Michelle,
design.
I could talk about
Michelle
it for
and
longer.
Kwan are all
Yeah.
here.
Shall we punch some numbers in?
I
think so.
I gotta pull up that funky sheet.
We got a new sheet.
Oh,
it's,
we
it's
gotta-
fresh.
Oh wait, there's not
and
a Tanner.
A new
I'm
sheet.
doing
Not
it.
a
Tanner.
Don't worry about it.
Tanner's
I got it.
spreadsheet master facts.
Boop, boop, boop.
Knower Dykstra.
Oh, that didn't work.
Google's asking me to sign in. There we go.
All right, we can edit this out.
No, we don't have to. Leave it in.
It's all right.
Let them have
Oh.
fun.
How do you do the?
At this
how do you
point,
do the
it's
thing?
going to be a
Usually-
less than 1% reduction in the total runtime. So, what does it matter?
Oh, here we go. I got it. I think I got
Everyone
it.
likes to know how this sausage is made.
Yep.
Everyone likes to know how spreadsheets work.
There we go.
Guys, you do FX, you click the button, and it does all the math for you.
Mhm, mhm.
Ah, there you go.
all right.
alright.
I have a score that I have punched in.
Oh,
You
wait.
did it wrong.
Hang
Tanner.
on.
He messed up.
Yeah, I did mess up. I didn't put a total. I didn't put a total score thing
Ref,
in here.
blow the whistle. That's funny because all of this
Tweet.
spreadsheet says ref right now.
Uh-huh.
See, Tucker's getting mad because he's like, "Oh, people aren't gonna like this part. Oh, they're gonna click away." Brother, we're in feature length into the episode. No, anybody that got this far is not gonna be like, "Oh God, they're messing with the spreadsheet for 2 more minutes, and I don't want to see the score anymore." They're gonna want to see the score. John Tor, Dan's, I know you're watching right now. Thank you.
Actually, you know what? Let's do it analog. We'll do it analog for this one. We'll harken back to the olden days.
To quote Sean Hannity, "Ev, we'll do it live."
We'll do it live. And you know what? This one's on me because I forgot to do an average score thing because that's just magic in the Google Sheet that happens for me. I don't even think about it.
Okay.
You ready to
I
punch
got
him
a
in?
number.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop.
Okay, well, I can't do all this math this quickly, Tanner.
I got it.
I can do that. I can do that in my head.
I'm crunching.
No,
Oh,
you
can
can't.
you?
Tanner, you do it on the calculator. You tell me the number, then I'll tell you if I was right.
Okay, sounds good. So why don't we run down the scores here quick before we get an average?
Well, the scores,
No.
the average score is 9.2. That's what we're giving it.
Mhm.
The numbers going from, let's go from the bottom to the top. Abram gave it an 8.1. Tanner gave it a 9.3. I gave it a 9.5. And Tucker gave it a 10.0. So,
Yeah.
that's pretty far up there on the list. I mean, we really couldn't shut up about
number
this
one
movie, so,
on this list.
proof's in the pudding, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of,
And
I'm
will
kind
it
of,
remain
dang,
in that top spot?
I was going to give it a 9.3, but in our discussion, I really warmed up to it even more. So I gave it a 9.5.
Good.
Good stuff. Good
Warms
stuff
the
all
dark
around,
cackles
fellas.
in my heart, boys. We did it.
We've set a bad precedent for the rest of these reviews, doing an hour and a half
Yeah.
on this one.
It's true. No, it's not gonna happen. Well, I don't know.
Don't make
We can talk about
It
topics,
will happen
and-
again.
It's not happening again. That's a BLB promise.
which are never
We
good for
always
anything.
stick by those.
Does anybody feel the need for a final thought?
No, wrap it up. Let's get out of
What
here.
film
Let these people
are
free.
we watching
goddammit.
next time?
Oh, of course. The next episode of the Quest for the Bestest 2023 Best Picture nominations will be All Quiet on the Western Front.
I'm so excited for this one because we already reviewed this movie. Except we took
Silly me.
We took the movie from 1930. And as I said earlier, I am a huge sucker for silent German movies, and this promises, by the title and the country of origin, to be yet another one of those.
It's not silent.
Timo, I have bad news for you. It's in color.
Fuck.
It's got sound.
Actually,
Yeah.
I'm okay
All
with
the
that.
people associated with it are not dead.
I'm excited
And-
for this
Unfortunate.
one.
And this is, at least on a numbers basis, maybe the stiffest competition everything ever has for Best Picture. Maybe.
Yeah,
This
for
one
nominations,
picked
true.
up
Purely numbers wise.
a bunch of nominations, which we will all talk about next time. We're going to dive into it, give as much
Oh,
analysis.
this one's on Netflix, by
Yeah.
the way, in case you don't know. It's on Netflix.
Netflix was the distributor for it, so I'll just repeat what
Mhm.
Tanner says. All right, we've gone on long enough. We got to finish this before we hit the runtime of the movie that we talk about. That is a cardinal sin
Uh-huh.
of movie podcasting. We can't do that.
Uh-huh.
So until next time, we'll be back with All Quiet on the Western Front from 2023. And until then,
Two.
peace.